Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new session. This session is entitled A Word on Writing. A Word on Writing. And notice that I have put the word writing between inverted commas to signify the task in the university curricula and the curricula of schools as well. To distinguish it from the writing as a profession of some distinguished people and writing in general. So this session will be a series of tips for second year students of mechanical engineering at the NSEM school about how to undertake a task of writing or written composition. Unfortunately, they don't have enough training in this area, so I thought maybe this could be helpful. See attached list of used sources. Because you will have a writing section in your exam, in addition to the already announced multiple choice section, distance exam oblige, I would like to say something about writing and try to demystify this all too often and justifiably terrifying academic task. Many people are afraid of it, but they shouldn't. Bearing in mind the Saussurean dichotomy of langue and parole and its Chomskyan twin, competence and performance, I would say that writing is a competence that only needs to be developed, polished, drilled, exercised until it reaches the highest stages of excellence in performance. And that high degree of excellence has been reached by a number of people who have been trained in creative writing and others who have been self-taught. I mean, Joseph Conrad, one of my best examples, my favorite authors, is Joseph Conrad, who learned English by himself, self-study, and not only he learned the language, he became an excellent writer in that language, and he never set foot in a university. Can you imagine that? We could say the same thing about Abbas Mahmoud Aqad, the Egyptian Arab writer, who also never set foot in a university, and yet wrote very, very good books and became an excellent stylist. So writing is a form of communication where word is committed to paper, but after deep reflection and through carefully organized steps. And it's about those steps that I'm going to talk now. Usually you are given a topic to write about. Topic means a subject. You are given a task. A topic which is also called a prompt. Prompt, you are prompted, you are urged to, you are encouraged, you are urged to talk about, to write about a specific topic. That topic or prompt, you need to read carefully and comprehend. The first task is to understand the topic question, to understand, to comprehend. Okay? Because it is usually cryptic and indirectly bearing a problem or issue of interest that you are invited to, required, or challenged to reflect upon and write and come up with an essay in which you persuasively argue for a point to convince and persuade your readers, your reader or readers with your well-informed point of view. Exactly. So the topic question is usually cryptic and indirectly bearing a problematics. Notice that the word problematics is plural, though it is singular. It has an S, though it is singular. There is a problem, something of interest to people, an issue which is quite complex and which you are asked to explain, to express your point of view, to test your knowledge and your skill in problem solving or in discussing and talking about such issue. And you need to write persuasively to convince people of the soundness of your point of view. And that should be well informed, of course, so how much you know and how well you know about this subject. When you read the topic question or prompt, you need to underline the keywords. This is an important step, underlining the keywords to be able to determine the main aspects of the issue. So the topic question is there like an enigma, and you have to underline the keywords in order to identify the main aspects of the issue, because every issue has different aspects, 2, 3, 4 aspects, and you need to identify them to be able to write about them. So this is the first step of analysis for you. So that issue you have to write about, to discuss or to analyze. This is what you are usually expected to do. This underlining of the keywords helps you formulate the questions that you will be discussing and answering in your dissertation. So from the topic question to your own question, it's as if you multiplied or if you translated that topic question, that prompt, into several questions. You need to extract, you need to raise several questions out of that first cryptic question set to you. So this crucial step must not be neglected or overlooked if you want to ensure relevance and avoid being accused of writing beside the point, the required and expected point. Yes, you should not be hasty. Don't just read quickly the topic question and go to answer in 10-15 minutes and go out. No, that's not the wise way of doing it. You should underline the keywords. You should formulate questions to be able to ensure relevance, because relevance is a very important thing. Now we're asking you to write a couple of pages or 3 pages or 4 pages depending on the type of exam, but what you write should be relevant. Some people write lots of many pages, but it's irrelevant and they end up with a 4 or 5 out of 20. So relevance is very important. You should answer this specific question. Don't talk about something far-fetched, remotely related to the subject or unrelated to it, because the teacher will have to write on the margin beside the point, hors sujet, خارج الموضوع. Now you should write on the point, not beside the point. Once you have grasped the issue that the examiner has cryptically implied or embedded in the prompt, you need to proceed with the next step, which is brainstorming. In other words, to rack your brains to extract relevant ideas and facts that could be used to to develop and construct your essay or piece of writing. Yeah, the, the cryptically embedded in the prompt. The issue cryptically embedded in the prompt. Meaning, usually the topic question is not literal, is not direct. It's usually indirect. It's like a hidden treasure that you have to dig out, to bring out. You see? So teachers, I was going to say explain, teachers deliberately um, hide the issue of the topic so that so as to test your ability of an understanding, of comprehension. If you cannot understand the question, why should you pass? Why should you be given a passing mark? You should prove that you can understand. You have a sense of discrimination and the ability to understand the language. And the next step is brainstorming. Brainstorming is a tricky business. It means you try to force yourself, to stimulate yourself, to reflect about the issue and to bring what is hidden, what is stored in your mind as information or facts or attitude or experience about a particular subject. So brainstorming is again is part of mining into your brain, data mining, is mining into your brain to find what is stored in there. The mind is a very extraordinary apparatus or faculty in humans. It can record lots of information, and most of that information is usually dormant, usually sleeping, dormant there, and it needs to be reawakened and to be excited to come up. So there are experiences which you had in your childhood and which you think you have forgotten, but you can bring back if you um, trigger them and revive them. This means you need to quiz yourself about what you know on the subject. If it is a homework or independent work, in the case, if it is a homework or if it is an independent work, you must conduct some serious research. Yes, it's not just brainstorming, it's not just what you know and what you feel and what you remember and what you have experienced, but also what you can find also as supportive evidence and authoritative source from authoritative sources of information. So you need to conduct research. In the exam, you don't conduct research. You conduct research before you come to the exam room. But if it is independent research, if it is independent writing, you should do some research. Even when you are writing a novel, you should do some research. Because a novel is not just fiction, it's not just something that you invent from your brain. It reflects reality. You should check some facts. Finding suitable relevant resources before reading. This is where bibliography comes in and field research come in. Extracting suitable and relevant information necessary to develop and construct your piece of writing. I like the image of building a house using bricks or stones. You need to get stones from the area, from different sources, from different quarries, and you need to bring different materials from different sources. You need to bring paint from the shop that sells such things, and you need to bring electrical wires. You need to bring iron. You need to bring sand. You need to bring water. You need to bring different materials to do your building. You don't build something out of the blue. You need to collect materials. From your scribbled draft notes resulting from your brainstorming, you can develop a working outline. That is a series of well-structured points that you will tackle chronologically in your essay or dissertation. Your outline is the roadmap for you during the writing of the essay, and it is also the roadmap that guides your reader throughout your argument when he reads it. So, when you do the brainstorming, you don't do it in the void. You scribble draft notes. You jot down notes on the draft paper, because memories are very funny. They come and go. Sometimes they come, and sometimes they are elusive. You need to capture them and to pin them down on paper. So remember Marcel Proust's À la recherche du temps perdu, and how he did try to revive memories of a long time ago and trying to rewrite them and to record them. So you scribble draft notes, and of course these draft notes are disparate. They are not. They don't come in the right order. They are not chronological, but it's up to you to reorganize them into a working outline, not a final outline, but a working outline, something that helps you, a roadmap for you and for your reader later. So an outline is yet another step that is useful when you are writing. You should always write. It shouldn't take you a lot of time. It takes you just a few minutes to develop an outline. For a short or medium-sized essay, an outline should be no more than 4 or 5 points. So as you can see, you can write it very quickly. You can elaborate it very quickly. Just 4 or 5 points. And of course, those 4 or 5 points can be developed into large chapters and detailed chapters and subsections, etc. I've seen books with 10 chapters, with 20 chapters. It depends on the scope of the subject you are trying to deal with. So those 4 or 5 points are aspects of the issue, of the problem, of the thing written about. Some students who are expected to write a long essay, they write it in 1 or 2 paragraphs, as though you have only 2 ideas about that paragraph, about that essay. No, you should have more. Every idea can be subdivided. You can subdivide your points into many, and you can have plenty. You can have enough to convince and persuade your reader. If you have only 2 ideas, well, I doubt that your reader will be persuaded and your teacher will be generous with you. How can he or she? So every point of those 4 or 5 points is followed by arguments, details, facts, examples. You can put them there in brief so as not to forget them. And then you could proceed by writing straight away, because you have the material, you have collected enough material to develop your essay. Then you think hard to decide which should come first and which should come next, and so on. Which should come first, which should come next. That is certain order, certain logic, certain chronology, cause and effect, or chronology, or kind of syllogism that you can apply to your argument. So it's up to you to decide how to organize those things. So which idea, which aspect comes is number one, which is number two, which is number three, which is number four, and which is number five, and that's it. Writing is a funny thing. It's linear. Like it or not, it's linear. There is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. There's a number one, a number two, a number three, a number four, a number five. This is how it works. So you had better think of the right order to organize your outline and your essay. It should be remembered that an essay or piece of writing should be written in paragraphs. And a paragraph is a major unit of discourse, a constituent and a building block of an instance of communication. Yes, paragraphing is very important. Many people don't know how to paragraph. Many authors, unfortunately, don't know how to develop paragraphs. But paragraph is a building block of essay writing, of writing in general. A paragraph has its criteria. It's a major unit of discourse, just as the sentence has been the subject of or the subject matter of a science or many sciences, linguistics. The sentence is the subject of linguistics, of syntax. The sentence is the area or the hunting ground of the linguist, of the syntactician. So is the paragraph. A paragraph should be devoted as science for itself. Paragraph or essay, because a paragraph is a short essay, or is that an essay in miniature? A paragraph is an essay in miniature. So paragraphing should be devoted a discipline on its own, should be devoted its due importance. So you should study about paragraphs, what are the requirements of the good paragraph, and try to exercise yourself and to excel in paragraph writing. You should train yourself to become a good paragraph writer. Don't write just in sentences. Put sentences into paragraphs. That's a major building block. It's a major unit of discourse. Discourse is the use of language. How do we use language? We should know how to use it coherently, cohesively, in a complete manner, in a united manner, not in independent sentences. Of an instance of communication, yes, it's a case of communication. A paragraph is made of a number of sentences, normally between 5 and 8. This is my rule that I keep exhorting or urging my students to use. I say a good paragraph, or the size of the average paragraph is between 5 and 8 sentences. It should not be less, it should not be more. Occasionally, maybe, but usually it's around 5 sentences, probably 6, 7, or even 8. Why do we need so many sentences in a paragraph? Because a paragraph should be complete. A paragraph is about one main idea. And if you put that main idea in the first sentence, for example, the topic sentence, and follow it with 3 sentences only, and you jump to the next paragraph, it means that probably that your paragraph, your first paragraph, was not complete. You did not develop the idea fully or enough to persuade the reader, to convince the reader. All right? So those 5 to 8 sentences are there to ensure completeness for your paragraph, to ensure that you have covered enough, you have developed enough that idea. بحال كتبني شي حيط درتي فيها 3 دياجورات، درتي فيها غير مترو، دير فيه 3 مترو على الأقل. دونك you need to put enough sentences to develop this unit of this course, which is the paragraph, because it contains the topic, the main idea, the assertion, the affirmation of the paragraph. The first of these sentences in a paragraph is called the topic sentence. هذه اسمية ديالها. This is how it is called. It is called the topic sentence because it contains the topic, the main idea, the assertion, the affirmation of the paragraph, and it should be indented. My God, I will pull my hair, and some students forget about indenting their paragraph. Indentation is a formatting feature, but it indicates that you are beginning a new paragraph. بحال كدير البروز ديال البني. All right. So the topic sentence begins your paragraph, and it is followed by developers, and each paragraph should be indented. That is the first line. You should enter a few spaces, 4 or 5. La linéa is what I call in French, la linéa. The next sentences develop the main idea, and they define it, they illustrate it, and exemplify it, explain it, and analyze it. You can write different types of paragraphs, but a paragraph can do all these functions separately or together. A paragraph contains definitions. It could be a defining paragraph. It contains illustrations of the main idea of in the topic sentence. It exemplifies the main idea. It provides examples, cases. It explains it. It is explanatory. It can be explanatory. It analyzes it. It can be analytical. It can separate it into, it can break it into pieces to make it easier for understanding and for comprehension. So the sentences of the middle of the paragraph are called developers. The sentences that come after the topic sentence are called the developers because that's what they do. They should be logically interrelated to make the paragraph coherent. This is another condition or prerequisite of the good paragraph. In addition to completeness, it should be coherent. They should be interrelated. It should be linked to each other with conjunctions, with transitions. These conjunctions are a kind of cement that binds those sentences. And those sentences, those developers, should all bear on the topic sentence. They should all bear on the. Sorry, I'm going to correct this. They should all bear on the topic sentence. يعني خص تكون عندهم علاقة مع topic sentence. If one of those sentences has nothing to do with the topic sentence, it means that you are talking about a different subject and that you are breaking the unity and the coherence of the paragraph. Each main idea should be developed in one paragraph. So the developers should be developing exactly the topic sentence. There should be transitional markers, conjunctions, etc. to make the paragraph cohesive. The last sentence of the paragraph should conclude it. It is called the concluded sentence that wraps up the paragraph. Wraps up. That's wraps up. To wrap up. You know the verb? To wrap up. To conclude. Wraps up the paragraph and launch a bridge to the next. Exactly. You should finish the current paragraph and announce or send a bridge towards the next. So there should be transitional markers. Now let me talk about the different types of essay, different types of writing. You could categorize, you could classify a number of types of writing. Okay. There are 3 or 4 major types of writing, but you may find them or need to use them all in one project. In other words, there are 4 or 5 skills, 3 or 4 major skills when you are writing, major ones, but you may need those skills all together. The first one is the descriptive essay. Description is yet another typically human skill. To be able to describe the picture, to portray something or someone to other people in words and in words only. Yes, I'm talking here about the descriptive skill, the skill of description. It's another typically human skill. An idea that came to my mind. Yeah, you will not find a dog explaining or describing something to another dog. I don't think that dogs' minds are as developed as that. Yeah, I know they can smell each other, but they cannot describe the smell of somebody else, for example, another individual. Bees, for example, communicate. They can show each other the road of towards some quarry or some garden, some flowering garden, to go and hunt for nectar. Bees communicate by their dances, by their movements, but I don't think that they can describe a lot. Their language is very rudimentary, I assume. I'm not a zoologist, but I can assume that the language of dogs and the language of bees and other animals and insects is quite rudimentary and it cannot come near to the ability of description, which is typically human. To be able to describe, to picture in words, to give an idea. This is a very sophisticated skill, admirable skill actually. To portray something or someone in words and in words only. You don't need a picture, you don't need colors, just words. A simple technique of description is to observe and describe. You need to have a good sense of observation. You should just open your eyes and to look for details and for shapes and for forms and for colors, for functions as well. Describe form and function. I've always told students this. Whenever you describe something, you should always bear in mind the form and function. These are two helpful tools for description. Proceeding from the larger structure to the smaller part or details or vice versa. I've always mentioned the example of Honoré de Balzac, the French writer. He's a realist. He's an extreme realist, actually. He has a very keen sense of observation for detail. If you read his novels, Madame Bovary, Madame Bovary for Gustave Flaubert, Père Goriot, and so on, I think this author, Honoré de Balzac, has a very keen observation. He wants to talk about characters. He describes the room where the characters are, and that description is really meticulous. It's like a camera, but very, very pleasant and very, very witty and very smart. I mean, like an omniscient narrator who has a very who is endowed with very keen sense of observation. Proceeding from the larger structure to the smaller part of details or vice versa. In other words, what does the object of description or its parts look like, and what is its function? What does it do and how? Yeah, form and function. We do not describe for the sake of a description, but to make a point about something. Yet, we inform people about the described thing, but we also express our attitude. We do not just inform, we do not just describe, we express an attitude. When Honoré de Balzac describes a room, for example, he's not just describing for the sake of description. There is an attitude there involved about the characters, about the people who inhabit that room. Are they meticulous? Are they neat or disordered, or etc.? So there is always attitude towards the described thing or object, and that should be the governing idea of our entire descriptive piece of writing. Yes. Remember, whenever you write a descriptive essay, you pay attention to the form and to the function, but do not forget that there should be attitude, that there should be a point about the description. It should be implicit, explicit or implicit. The narrative essay. The narrative essay is about telling a story. The second type is a narrative essay, telling a story, recounting what happened, in other words, informing people who were not present of what happened, an interesting and a worthwhile story. So the narrative essay is to tell people about what happened, to inform people of what happened. So you had better be well informed yourself to be able to inform people. You should remember what happened. You should be honest because you are reporting to other people. You are chronicling, you are narrating, you are reporting. So you are recounting what happened. You are informing people who were not present. You should make extra effort to make paint a vivid picture for them, narrative picture for them of what happened. And telling stories, you don't just tell stories. Stories should be interesting and worthwhile. You should not waste people's time. Your story, your narrative should be interesting, should have a message, should be enriching, should be edifying for the readers. There is also a science, one of the humanities, which does exactly that in more or less systematic way, based on facts and documents and some analysis. That's what we call history. تاريخ وما أدراك ما التاريخ. History is narrative. You are describing, you are chronicling, you are describing what happened in the past, about societies, about communities, about leaders, and about politicians as well. Not just leaders and politicians, but also about people, about societies and communities. And the historian tries to be as honest as possible. Well, of course, he's governed by his own ideology. That's the problem. He does it in a more or less systematic way. He tries to capture all the details, all the relevant details, based on facts. He tries to give you facts based on evidence, archaeological or whatever, and documents, written letters, contracts, maps, etc., and some analysis. Of course, there is some analysis, that's where interpretation comes in. But of course, history, there is no one history. There are many different types of history, or the different versions of history. And of course, you need to read several to be able to make your own version of the truth, as I've said in a previous article. And there is an art which also does the same thing, telling stories, which is called fiction, or the art of the novel. So as you can see, many people or different disciplines converge about narrative, about telling stories. Historians narrate history, describe history, and also novelists do exactly the same thing. However, you may have to write narratives and telling what happened without having to be neither a historian nor a novelist. Yes, you don't need to be an official historian to narrate. We narrate in everyday life. We narrate when we come back home about what happened to us during the day, during a day's work, and what we saw in town, downtown. Yes, we don't need to be a professional historian to narrate stories, nor to be a novelist to tell interesting narratives about what happened to you or to other people, family members or friends. Our need for narration is a daily human necessity. You see, I'm giving you some philosophical gems now and again. These are my ideas, you know. And our need for narration is a daily human necessity. Yes, it's our daily bread. We need narration. Everybody narrates. Everybody is narrated to. Narration is part of our lives. It's a daily activity. So our need for narration is a daily human necessity. Just see the news, the mass media and other networks. What do? They are all made of narratives. They all give or provide narratives, and they call them stories. They call them stories. Watch the BBC or CNN or Al Jazeera. They would tell you that the story, so and so story. A simple technique how to write a narrative essay is to determine a main event. Yes, an instance of narrative is about a main event. There are a series of events, but one of them is salient, is important, and you need to identify it, to determine it, in order to give it the right position within your story. Once you have chosen the main event, you you think about what came before the event and what happened after the event. So the build up towards that event, and which is the climax, and the aftermath of that event, that what happens after that event. Um, so what came after. So you choose the main event, what happened before the event, and the after the event, and that will give you a rough outline for your narrative essay. Of course, we tell a story. We tell stories to edify, to cultivate, to partake, to share wisdom. When you tell a story of somebody or something, you are giving the gist of a human experience to somebody else. You may benefit from a story. We gain wisdom from a story. We become wiser from reading a story. Yes, novels and narratives are entertaining, but they are also a mine of wisdom, depending on our skill and how to benefit from them, depending on our intention and our smartness, how we benefit from stories. القرآن فذكر الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين قد لا تنفع غير المؤمنين. وذكر ذكرى, it's like a story, it's like a narrative, it's a reminder, it's a symbolic enactment of certain experience, certain happening. So it's a source of wisdom. Now, the third type of essay writing is the argumentative. You can call it the expository as well. There are different names, but they mean more or less the same thing. Here you write to argue for a point. You use as many and as strong arguments as you can to persuade your readers of the soundness of your point of view about a particular issue. The world is full of conflicting ideas because people are defined by their education, their cultural or ideological background, and their own subjectivity. So everyone must support his claims of truth with as many and as strong arguments as possible to convince those who are neutral, floaters, or ready to accept the best argumentation. Yes, we are human individuals. Individuals meaning we have our specific, each one has a specific way of looking at things, depending on our education and our training and our knowledge, our degree of knowledge, and our cultural and ideological background. So we don't have the same view of the truth. We don't have exactly the same knowledge of things. So when we want to talk to other individuals about something and to convince them that our understanding and our knowledge is sound and correct about something, we need to argue and to use as many and as strong arguments as possible. One such technique of argumentation is to begin with the last persuasive, leaving the strongest, most persuasive till the end for the greatest effect. You can put them in a specific order, depending on the effect you want to achieve. We also use the logos, the logic, the pathos, the appeal to emotions, and ethos, the appeal to the sense of ethics of people, to convince them, to persuade them. We can use these three separately or combined depending on the nature of our audience. That is, we choose the type of rhetoric to use to convince our audience. Of course, we can use all of them or all of them in combination. And to ensure that people accept and listen to your arguments and argumentation, you need to structure your essay on two axes. You begin by acknowledging the other side of the argument. When we are writing an argumentative essay, do not just pile up your own arguments and your convictions and your beliefs and what you think is strong evidence and think that you will be successful in winning people over to your argument. No, that's not enough. The best way, the smartest way, is to structure your essay on two axes. You begin with the other side of the argument. You review what others have think, how others see things before you proceed to present your own side of the argument, and you detail it. Of course, you can give 1/3 or 1/4 to the other side of the argument, and you give yourself the lion's share, 3/4 of the essay. But you should not take the full essay for yourself. You should devote 1/4 or 1/3 to the other side of the argument. To ensure that people accept and listen to your arguments and argumentation, you need to structure your essay on two axes. You begin by acknowledging the other side of the argument, the views and arguments of those you don't agree with. هنا تثبيت أنك عندك واحد الحس علمي، واحد الموضوعية، واحد شمولية that you know other people. You need to briefly review their views and arguments and show that you are aware of them. Show that you know, so as not to be taken unaware. And people would point out to you that other people have annulled your argument or have debunked your argument, and you are not aware. You would look like a fool if you did. So you had better devote decent space to the outside of the argument to show that you know, that you are in the know, before you proceed to present your side of the argument. وديك الوقيته لعلك ما ترضى. With all the facts and arguments and support from authoritative sources. Yes. It's always a good thing to bring heavyweight authoritative sources to support your argument. إلا جبتي شي تقول لي زكسبير ومتخصصين في الميدان صافي ما تخلي الجانب الآخر ما يقول. Specialists and experts on the subject. Persuasive is the same thing as the argumentative essay. The purpose is to convince. The expository essay talks about the facts. The persuasive essay talks about arguments. The main purpose of the persuasive essay is to win over the trust of the reader and to accept your point of view. يعني إقناع. تحاول إقناع الآخرين. تحاول استمالتهم نحو وجهة نظرك, to your opinion, to your proposition as the author. In writing a persuasive essay, your opinion should be supported by relevant facts. Relevant facts. ما تجيبلناش شي facts اللي لها علاقة. تجيب facts اللي عندهم علاقة بالموضوع. Relevant facts and logical and sound reasoning. Though the essayist should lay all necessary details from both sides of the argument, he/she must comprehensively explain why one side is correct or more favorable than the other. Yes, you are comparing actually. That's a very smart thing. You are comparing, or you are allowing your reader to compare. You show your reader um, the other side of the argument, and you show him your side of the argument, and you leave him make his choice, and of course, hopefully, to choose your own side. Despite essays being categorized in four types, it is also important to know that an essay is not limited to one type only. In some cases, a narrative essay could be able could also be mixed with a descriptive essay or persuasive essay combined with an expository type. Nevertheless, identifying the purpose of your essay is vital before writing. You need to show your reader your intention. You should not leave him or her in the dark. You should indicate to your reader what you are doing. Now, I've finished about these types of essay. I've talked about them. I've explained about them. Of course, this will not make very good writers of you overnight. You need practice. It's like talking to somebody about driving a car. He needs to go in the car to be able to drive. He needs he needs on-hand practice, not just theoretical talk about it. But theory is important. Theory is the first step. You need to understand something about it, and you need some examples to illustrate the case. The case is in point to be able to, and you need to do a lot of exercise. This is just the first step for you, dear students, dear NCEP students, to do a lot of self-study in English. I'm telling you, in English. You are young, you are intelligent, you are smart. Of course, you can master your subjects, your specialization subject, but you need to study a lot more of English if you want to become fluent communicators in spoken but also in written. And you can learn everything. Everything can be learned nowadays. You can find everything on YouTube. You can learn everything. Just exercise yourself. All you need is some discipline. All you need is some discipline and some commitment. I may devote another session, but you are short of time, I know, another session to examine some examples of writing. I can, no problem for me. But the problem is with you, you don't have enough time. The expository essay is argumentative. It seeks to uncover and to clarify. You can consider it as a different type of writing. It explains something. So do we when we are arguing. We are explaining. From its name itself, an expository essay is used to expose something on matters that are known to others. I mean, you are explaining more to other people. For example, if I write an essay about COVID-19, you have already heard about of COVID-19, but I could write an expository essay about certain aspects that you may not know about, or some aspect that may be unclear to you. I will do some research and I will write an expository essay about COVID-19, for example. This type of essay is a genre of composition that aims to explain, to illustrate, to clarify, to explicate a certain subject for the readers. That's what we do for arguing. But arguing usually when something is debatable, when something is there are different views and opinions about it. I think I'll have to stop here.